Hello viewers, in my previous lectures we had discussed the open chain structure of D-glucose could not explain all its properties. I had also explained in great details the mechanism for hemiacetal formation, that is cyclic form of glucose by reaction between the aldehyde group and the OH group on the fifth carbon. And we have also seen how can we represent the cyclic form of glucose. It can be represented by three structures, that is Fischer's projections, Parenos rings, that is Haworth projection, and chair conformations. You can refer to my lectures on CEC, the links of which I have shared with you, which are dealing in great details with cyclic structure of glucose, part 1 and part 2, that is the formation of hemiacetal form and then the representation of cyclic glucose in form of three representations. So now we know that both the glucose, that is the alpha D glucose and beta D glucose, which are formed as a result of hemiacetal formation, can be differentiated on the basis of position of OH group at the anomeric carbon, that is C1 carbon, in all the representations. So just to recapitulate what we've done in our previous lectures, we will first compare the Fischer's projection with Haworth and the conformations so that you know quickly as to how you can differentiate between the molecules of alpha D glucose and beta D glucose, because the questions are normally asked in entrance exams and also in your college exams, that is which of the following is the correct representation for alpha D glucose and which is the one which is for the beta D glucose. So what you have to remember that in alpha D glucose, the position of OH group bonded to the anomeric carbon is to the right hand side in Fischer projection, it is down in Haworth projection, and it is at axial position in chair conformation. So as you can see on your screens, the first structure is representing the Fischer projection for alpha D glucose. Now how will we differentiate like which is the alpha D glucose and which is the beta D glucose? You know, as a result of cyclization, a new stereo center is generated, which is the first center. So the alpha and the beta forms of glucose will only differ at configuration at this first carbon. So when we look at this first carbon, what we find that in alpha form, in Fischer's projection, this OH is on the right hand side. Whereas now we have to convert, say, this Fischer projection into Haworth projection. What you have to remember, in Haworth projection, this OH, that is the first carbon, which is the anomeric carbon. You know this is the anomeric carbon because this carbon is attached to two oxygens. So at anomeric carbon, the OH will be pointing down. That is this CH2OH group, which indicates, since it is on the top of the ring, it indicates that the original molecule is having D configuration and the CH2OH and OH are trans in Haworth projection. That is which OH? OH at the first carbon. Now when we go on to chair conformation, you know that when we are talking of the chair conformation for glucose, you don't have to do much. You just have to draw the structure for cyclohexane. And in which conformation? The chair conformation. And then we can replace this carbon in cyclohexane with oxygen. So this becomes the Parenos rings. And what is the conformation here? The conformation here is the chair conformation. So when we are converting Fischer to chair, or we are looking at the chair conformation for alpha D glucose, you have to remember that at axial position, at this position, at the anomeric carbon, OH will be at the axial position. You know what is an axial position? The bonds which are parallel to the axis, they are the axial bonds, and the bonds which are perpendicular to the axis, those are the equatorial bonds. So in this case, OH is at axial position. So now let us look into how are we, so if three structures are given to us and we are asked to find out which is the alpha D glucose, you will just look at the orientation of the OH at the first carbon in Haworth projection. It will be facing down, and in chair conformation it will be at the axial position. Now if we look into the beta form, so you have to remember when we are comparing beta form with an alpha form, the only difference is going to be the orientation of the OH at the first carbon, which was the chiral carbon which was generated as a result of reaction between the hydroxyl group at the fifth carbon and the carbonyl group, that is the aldehyde group at the first carbon. So when we are talking of beta form, beta D glucose, what you have to remember, in Fischer's projection, this OH will be on the left hand side, whereas what we've seen in alpha, the OH was there on the right hand side. Then when we go on to Haworth projection, what you have to remember, when we are drawing the Haworth projection, all the groups which are on the right hand side, they will go down in this structure, and the groups which are on the left hand side will go up. So that is if we have to convert Fischer into the Haworth projection. So in this case, what we find that the OH here is on the left hand side, so it is on the top of the ring. So in beta form, what you have to remember, this CH2OH and anomeric OH, that is the OH at the anomeric carbon, are cis to each other. And when we talk of the chair conformation, in that case the OH here is at the equatorial position. Otherwise the conformation at all the other carbons is the same. So now if we have to compare, now the question can be asked, which of the following is the correct representation for the alpha D form or the beta D form? Now what they can do is, to confuse you, they can give you the correct form for Fischer, the correct form for Haworth, but when they are talking of the chair conformation, they will put OH at the axial position. So in this case, what you have to keep in mind, that when we are talking of beta form of D glucose, OH will be left in the Fischer projection, it will be on the top in the Haworth projection, that is CH2OH, and OH will be cis to each other, and OH will be at the equatorial position in the chair conformation. So this is how we can represent the three forms, the two forms of glucose, that is alpha D glucose and beta D glucose in cyclic forms. Now what is the benefit of showing a structure by Haworth projection? In Haworth projection, we find that the stereochemistry at each chiral carbon is specified. Like we know here that here the OH is on the top, here the OH is at the bottom, and then we can of course go on to giving it the absolute configuration also. And when we talk of the chair conformation, it is telling us clearly about the stereochemistry as well as the conformation. That is that we are representing glucose in its most stable form, which is the chair form. Just now we will also be discussing which chair form, in which form glucose is prevalent in nature, whether it is prevalent in form of alpha D glucose or beta D glucose. So now what we know, after cyclization, that is after the reaction of a hydroxyl group on the 5th carbon and the aldehyde group on the 1st carbon, what we get cyclic hemiacetals, and these cyclic hemiacetals are also known as anomers. Anomers, as we've already discussed, are special type of epimers which differ in configuration at C1 when we are talking of cyclic hemiacetal forms. And they are diastereomers, that is, their physical properties will be different. So when we are talking of the cyclic structure of glucose, that is, it will exist in form of an hemiacetal form, that is, the aldehydic free group is not free here, so it can explain the anomalies of the open chain structure. That is, we say that one of the anomalies was that glucose does not react with Schiff's reagent. That is, now what is Schiff's test? Schiff's reagent is a solution of para-rosnylene hydrochloride, which is a dye, and it has been decolorized by sodium bisulfite, so it becomes colorless. And when we add it to an aldehyde, the color is regenerated, that is, the magenta color is regenerated. But when this Schiff's reagent is added to a molecule of glucose, it does not decolorize Schiff's reagent. That clearly indicates that it does not have a free aldehyde group. And we've also seen that D-glucose now is, because of cyclization, is existing in two isomeric forms, which are the alpha D form and the beta D form. Therefore, it will also be able to explain the phenomena of mutarotation. Next, we know that glucose reacts with one molecule of methanol to give us alpha and beta methyl glucosides. And these glucosides also do not show the phenomena of mutarotation, and they do not reduce Fellings and Tollens reagent. So now the question arises that if you go back and you stress on your memory, you will realize that when an aldehyde reacts with methanol in excess, it gives us hemiacetal, it gives us acetal, and in that process it is involving, or it is using, two molecules of methanol. That is, when it is being converted into acetal. But when we are converting glucose into acetal, it is just using 1 mole of methanol, and it is giving us isomeric glucosides, that is alpha and beta methyl glucosides. That means again that the glucose is existing in a hemiacetal form. And what we find that these alpha and beta methyl glucosides will not show mutarotation, and they will not reduce Fellings and Tollens reagent. Reason being that the anomeric OH is now involved in bond formation, that is glycosidic bond formation. So it is not free. So that means the ring opening cannot take place at that position, and therefore the molecule will not show mutarotation, and it will also not reduce Fellings and Tollens reagents. So now all these reactions which I have discussed, we can only explain that glucose is showing the phenomena of mutarotation. It is giving us isomeric methyl glucosides. It does not react with Schiff's reagent on the basis that the aldehyde group is not free, and it is reacting with the OH group to form a hemiacetal structure. And as I've already discussed, that because when we are forming the hemiacetal structure, a new asymmetric carbon is generated at C1. This leads to the two diastereomeric forms of glucose, which are the anomers, that is alpha D glucose and beta D glucose. And you can see the difference between alpha D glucose and beta D glucose. In alpha D glucose, the OH is below, is pointing down, that is CH2OH and OH are trans to each other, whereas in beta D glucose, this CH2OH and OH are on the same side, they are cis to each other. And if we compare configuration at rest of the carbons, that is second carbon, third carbon and the fourth carbon, we find that configuration in both the structures, that is alpha D glucose and beta D glucose, is same. So these two are diastereomers, and the special word for them is anomers, and we say anomers are examples of epimers. So that means their physical properties will be different. They are not enantiomers, because you have to remember that enantiomers are non-superimposable mirror images of each other. So if it were enantiomers, the configuration at the second, third and fourth carbon should have also been different, which is not the case. So these are pair of diastereomers. And we know that when we talk of diastereomers, their physical properties are different. So what we find that the normal glucose that we have, that is the alpha D glucose, and it can be precipitated out from, it crystallizes out from cold water, and its melting point is 146 degrees Celsius and the specific rotation is 112 degrees. Whereas beta D glucose has a specific rotation of 18.7 and it melts at 150 and it crystallizes out from hot concentrated solution of aqueous solution. So that means these two, the properties are different. That is, the specific rotation of alpha D glucose is 112 and specific rotation of beta D glucose is 18.7. This is the point that we have to concentrate on, and this is what will explain the phenomena of mutarotation. That is when either of the forms, that is alpha D glucose or beta D glucose, is dissolved in water, these two forms readily interconvert into each other through open chain form till an equilibrium is obtained. And this phenomena of mutarotation explains well, or it supports that the glucose will exist in cyclic hemiacetal form, that is the alpha form and the beta form. So what is mutarotation? Now the question is, before we proceed further as to why are glucose showing mutarotation, we should know what is mutarotation. The spontaneous change in specific rotation of an optically active reducing monosaccharide. What I am stressing here is reducing monosaccharide with time to an equilibrium value is called mutarotation. In other words, we can say the spontaneous change in specific rotation of a monosaccharide with time on keeping changes till an equilibrium value, till a constant value is obtained. And such a phenomena is known as mutarotation. Muta means in Latin, it is derived from a Latin word muta, which means to change. So muta, rotation, means that the rotation changes. And when does the rotation change? It changes with time. And if you look into a normal optically active compound, like if we talk of lactic acid, its optical rotation does not change with time because it is existing in only one form and its specific rotation will stay constant. But whereas when we are talking of monosaccharides, since they are existing in two cyclic forms, their specific rotation changes with time. And the phenomena of mutarotation was discovered by French chemist Augustin Pierre de Bonfort in 1844. And he noticed that while he was studying with aqueous solutions of sugars, he found that the specific rotation of these sugar solutions was changing with time. So he gave the phenomena of mutarotation. So he suggested that the specific rotation changes with time on keeping. So this could only be explained if the glucose has a cyclic structure. And when we talk of the crystalline form of glucose, that is alpha glucose and beta glucose, they are stable and they do not show mutarotation. But when we dissolve them in water, the specific rotation changes, and till it keeps on changing till an equilibrium mixture of both is obtained and we have a constant value. So how can we explain this? We see that when either of the two forms of glucose, whether it is the alpha D glucose or it is the beta D glucose, when they are dissolved in water and we leave them for some time, that is, we allow them to stand, they slowly get converted to other form through open chain structure. And this open chain structure is an intermediate structure, so it is present in very small amounts in the aqueous medium. And then they keep on converting into the other form till an equilibrium is obtained. So what do we say now? What is mutarotation? The specific rotation of a pure alpha D glucose or beta D glucose changes over time to reach an equilibrium. This is called mutarotation. So when we dissolve alpha D glucose, whose specific rotation is 112, an equilibrium will be established through open chain form till the rotation will become constant at 52.5. Similarly, when beta D glucose is dissolved in water, its specific rotation will change till it becomes constant at 52.5. That is how does this happen now. So we know that the specific rotation of alpha D glucose is 112, while that of beta D glucose is 18.7. We are putting positive in the beginning. That means these molecules are dextrorotatory. So when alpha form is dissolved in water, we know its initial rotation is going to be 112. But now what happens is that its rotation keeps on falling till a constant value of 52.7 is reached. Similarly, on the other hand, when beta form is dissolved in water, its specific rotation will keep on increasing till it becomes constant at 52.7. Now the question can be, how do we conclude that this is the specific rotation of the mixture is 52.7? So we can find out what is the specific rotation of the equilibrium mixture by using this formula, in which we find what is the A is the concentration of the alpha form. We multiply it by specific rotation of alpha, plus B is the concentration or the amount of the beta form, and we multiply it by specific rotation of beta, and then we divide it by 100. So then we will get the value of the optical rotation or specific rotation of the equilibrium mixture. So supposing if this is the concentration of alpha is 36 and that of beta is 64, then we find that the specific rotation of the equilibrium mixture is 52.7. Another question which can be asked is that they give you a specific rotation of equilibrium mixture, they give a specific rotation of alpha form, they give you specific rotation of beta form, and then they ask you what is the concentration of alpha or what is the concentration of beta in the aqueous solution. You will still use the same formula and find out what are the concentrations. So this is how we find out what is the concentration of a, or what is the specific rotation of a equilibrium mixture. In my next lecture now I shall be discussing as to why does this, how does this rotation take place, why is the there is more concentration of the beta form as compared to alpha form, and what is the mechanism of mutarotation. But till now what we've done is I have used these books, that is book by Carey, McMurray, Wade, Claydon and Solomon, and you can also refer to these books. They will be very useful for further reference. Thank you.